Welcome to Oz Talk. It is a very 2023 version of Oz Talk. It's our first one of the year. We're thrilled to see you here. We are live on our Facebook page and YouTube. That's the Facebook and YouTube page for the International Wizard of Oz Club, ozclub.org. We're going to be talking about the club today. We're also going to be covering new Ozzy hot topics and merch. Plus, we are joined by our special guest co-host, who is PJ Scott-Blakenship. He's creator of the Oz audio show, Hit the Bricks. He's also an Oz fan, just like the rest of us. And, you know, the Oz Club brings you Oz Talk every month. And since 1957, the International Wizard of Oz Club has been bringing fans together. Head on over to ozclub.org to join today if you're not already a member, where you can get the Bomb Bugle and also interact with private access at ozclub.org for all of our wonderful online website exclusives. So let's say hi to everybody today.
Hi!
Hi.
Hello. So glad to see everyone. How's everyone's New Year starting out? I know it's February.
Perfection.
It's really good.
Excellent. We've got some live viewers. Hello to Michael and also to Tom. Thanks for joining us. And PJ, it's great to have you. How is your Oz year starting off? I love your cake worthy.
Oh, sorry. And of course, my dog stepped right by the vacuum as you said hi to me.
That's all good.
Unplug that really quickly.
We started a couple minutes late for those of us watching live, but you're doing well.
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Everything's great.
Excellent. We've got Angelo checking in. Hi, Angelo, friend of the show and the club. And he's my number one news source. He kind of texts me when things hit. Also, hey, Ray Wall, it's the Wizard and L. Frank Baum. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us virtually today. If anybody has any questions coming up or wants to participate, we're ready for that. We've got Sarah also ready for Oz Talk. It's good to see everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. It's just so great to have everybody check in and say hello. But we're going to talk about a lot about Hit the Bricks today, which is this great Oz audio show, PJ, that you do. We want to learn more about you and how this show came to be. We know Garrett's a huge fan and has chatted with you before for the Oz Club, so we're thrilled to have you live on Oz Talk today. But first, we thought we'd start with some merch. And I wanted to talk about Tori, if I can intercept. This is something we didn't talk about before, but I was just getting ready today, and I put on this cute little Toto badge. And I thought, you know what, I'm on TV a lot for work. I'm on at least twice a week. Actually, I just found out the next 6 weeks I'm going to be filling in full time. So I'm going to be doing 5 hours a week, right? But for my friend, Molly, who's out for shoulder surgery, but I always try to wear something Oz when I'm on the air. And so I've been collecting these pins from Etsy, and they're really affordable. I mean, you can find, officially licensed pins and merch other places. Maybe I should go live, but I was wondering if you guys have any pins too. But there's this really cool one that I love that kind of goes with everything. There are some really great, public domain images that we can get. And then also there's some really great artists that go out and do, MGM inspired, but their own kind of work that I just like to have a little bit of Oz with me at all times. And I find that that's the way, even if I have a suit and tie on, I can throw that on. Do you guys collect any Oz pins?
So Second Street Pins a little while ago came out with this beautiful Judy Garland with the poppies pins. This is also available it was available on Etsy. I'm not sure if it still is, but I love this one. You don't see the poppy pins very often. And I wish I had known we were doing pins, because I just got in a stock of official Oz Vlog pins that are going to be available soon. So I wish I would have known. I would have grabbed some.
Oh my God, Oz Vlog! Wait. I have the thing. Oh, I just took something else out. This is what happens as I'm crafting and directing live as we're hosting. But I'm trying to go to the banners here because, you're at the Oz Vlog on TikTok, and I know that when we go there, there's also links to where we can find out all your stuff, and eventually we can go and buy these pins.
That is the hope. Yes, indeed. That's the plan.
Excellent. I can't wait to have one. I will wear one on TV. I'll wear one on Oz Talk.
I'm also designing some original merch to do with our friend the Crane, who has caused such havoc on VHS tapes since 1980.
That is brilliant. Oh my God, I love that you're doing it. You're gonna sell that. If anybody that's watching, if you're not on TikTok, get on it just to follow Tori at the Oz Vlog. And I feel like it's the bane of your existence in life now as an Oz historian, dispelling the hanging munchkin. So that's awesome that you're going to come up with that merch. But I first want to share a little clip of something that I talked about yesterday on TV in my Ryan J. Reviews segment. For those of you who don't know, I'm an entertainment critic on television in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, nationally syndicated on radio across America. And this is what I reviewed, the big movie that I reviewed yesterday.
I used to ask myself a lot of questions. Scott, you're an ex-con. How are you an Avenger? That doesn't make sense. But everywhere I go, people tell me the same thing.
Thank you, Spider-Man!
People still need help, Dad. That's why we made this. Like a satellite for deep space, but quantum.
Wait a minute. You're sending a signal down to the quantum realm. Turn it off. Now!
Secret universe beneath ours. What are you so afraid of? There's something I never told you.
This place. It isn't what you think. I can get you home. And give you more time. If you help me. So, what's it gonna be? AntMan.
We are listening. We're hearing Elton John's "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road" directly there over the trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It's the third Ant-Man film, and at a press conference recently, Kevin Feige, who is the chief of Marvel Cinematic Universe, along with director Peyton Reed, who directed all three Ant-Man movies, talked a lot about how The Wizard of Oz influenced the visual effect for Ant-Man. I'm wondering if anyone else has seen the film yet.
No, Mark has never really been my thing, but when I heard that music over the trailer, I got so excited. I got all, woo, that was so intense.
Yeah, it's a good trailer.
Yeah, it's a well-done trailer. I'm also not a big Marvel person. I think I stuck through the first cycle and then was like, I'm kind of done with this. This is more than I can deal with. Michelle Pfeiffer looks great. Yes. That was my biggest takeaway is Michelle Pfeiffer looks great. Paul Rudd doesn't age.
Very true. It's very true. Well, there were certainly, just for those of you know, I did not like the movie. My rating system is see it, stream it, or skip it. I said skip it, which I think is the first time I did that for a Marvel movie, aside from Morbius, which doesn't really count. But as far as Ant-Man goes and the imagery, there is thematic where they go from America to this other land, and then they want to get back home, and they meet some natives along the way in this land who help them get their way back home. There's a moment where a bubble comes toward them and turns into something else. But that was really the extent of Wizard of Ozness. I think it looked a lot more like Star Wars or Dune than it does The Wizard of Oz. So for anyone that's interested in checking it out, if you are familiar with my reviews and sensibility, I don't think it's a good movie, and I don't really even think that it pays off The Wizard of Oz that well. I think Pearl, the horror film, does a much better job at that, and it's a better movie, which I recommended. Let's see if we're getting any comments about this. here we have Tom is a Marvel fan looking forward to this movie as well. You should, and I think everyone needs to judge for themselves. So just because I said skip it, that you'll judge for yourself. You might agree with me or you might love it, and I'm thrilled if you do. Michael said he's going to wait until it gets released, and Nathaniel's saying hi, hello. Well, moving on from there, let's go back to the merch, because we know that, Tori, you did something very spectacular for Valentine's Day. You heard from one of our favorite adult libation brands, the Oz Winery of OzWineryKansas.com. I'm a fan. I've been there many times. It's right in Wamego, Kansas, right next to the Oz Museum. And Tori, tell us about what you got.
So I was fortunate enough to pair up with the Oz Winery in Wamego, Kansas, to promote their Valentine's Day gift sets. And they were kind enough to send me some of their other wines as well. What I love about it is they draw on Baum's universe for their labels, which are all original. I love this Run Toto Run. So cute. And this one, especially the Yellow Brick Road design, it does incorporate a little of that MGM magic with the Red Brick Road intertwined, but it's really more for the L. Frank Baum fan. And for Valentine's Day and for other holidays as well, they sell them in these gorgeous gift boxes. So they paired up with me. We teamed up together to promote their Valentine's Day box sets, and we are still running a promotion. So if you want to go to my link tree, you can find a link, or you can just go straight to the Oz Winery. And if you use code OZVLOG20, that's OZ, V as in Victor, LOG20, you can get 20% off 3 bottles on your order. So please take advantage of that, Oz Talk fans, and get yourself a discount.
I love that. That's worth it. I mean, has anybody else tried it yet, or do we have any adult beverage fans among us?
I do not drink, so exactly the wrong person to ask.
I'm
but they look
sober,
really cool.
So the bottles are cool, but
Yeah.
And that's the thing for collectors, even if you don't drink, and I rarely drink as well, but I did try the Glinda Bubbly. If you like sparkling wines, this was fabulous. But just as a collector, Oz wines are pretty rare. We had the Francis Ford Coppola Winery one a few years ago, but you really don't see these that often. So even if you're not interested in drinking them and you just want to have them for your shelf, I think as a collector, they're a really special find. So even if you're not a drinker and you just want to have them as decorative items in your Oz collection, I think it's totally worth it.
Yes, I do have a friend who is a wine enthusiast, and he's on those lists, and they're very competitive and difficult to get on. So I had he gave me a bottle for my birthday of the Monsieur Etain wine and the Scarecrow wine, and those are extremely high end. I think a lot of collectors don't even know about those, and I wouldn't have it. It's the kind of thing you can buy, but they're really priced out of. When I was at the Oz Winery one year when I was presenting at Oztoberfest, they had this limited edition poppy field, it's like a rosé, and I never opened it because it's one of their limited edition ones, and it's now $500. So I think, I bought it for about $50 at the time. So they do increase in value as a wine and as a collectible that way. So those are kind of fun, and I love that. What's your code again? Let me put the website back up. And what's your code again?
It's OZVLOG20. So OZVLOG20.
Great. And then they'll get a discount on anything they purchase over there. So that's great for anyone that's interested. I love that. And then before we get over to Hit the Bricks too, which we're going to do in just a moment, PJ, you're not a drinker, but you are a collector. Did you dive into, I was going to say Dovin. Oh my God. Did you dive? Have you dived? Did you dive? Dived. You dove? What's going on here? Where's my grammar? Is this long COVID brain fog? Okay. I'm trying to talk about Ray Dunn is the bottom line here. And Garrett, let me first just give you a little bit of a public apology, because do you remember back before we first launched Oz Talk a couple years ago, and you're like, can we drink during the show? Can we have coffee during the show? And I was like, no, we're not going to be doing it. But now we obviously do and stuff. So I'm sorry for being so rigid there, but let's first look at Garrett's mug. What do you have?
Mine is a nice Westland giftware circa 1999 mug. I actually went. I did not when the Ray Dunns first came out. I was like, no, that's not my jam. Not interested. But I did kind of like the stackable mugs. So when they came back out, I thought, okay, I did kind of like the stackable mugs. Let me go look at them in person and see what I think. And they are still not my jam. So my initial response was the same. So I'm glad I don't have my FOMO. I did at least get to go clarify that no, it is really not my jam. I think the mugs, like in terms of the actual like quality, they look great. I just don't think that and I like the art that she used. They're on the pajama set from a couple of years ago, and I love the pajamas, but I just don't feel like they translated onto the mugs well, and the colors on at least the ones at my store were not terribly vibrant. Like it just felt like they took a decent quality mug and slapped some cheap paint on it and called it a day. So it was not really my jam, but it may be but I know there are certainly people who really love it, and I'm not going to take away from that from them.
Yeah, I'll say that I think the artwork transfer is nice. The only colorization problem that I had was on the canister that Tori's about to show you, that she and I both got, that Dorothy's dress on that looks very not blue enough, in my opinion.
And it could also very easily be that just the batch at the store that I went to was, I mean, I know when you produce things like that sometimes happens, but like the Glinda seemed really washed out because I looked at that one. They didn't have the big canister or my stackable mugs. But I also thought the Scarecrow, like the color dynamic on him on his mug wasn't, it just seemed too flat. That's fair. I will say, Tori, because I'm going to give it to you to take away in a sec, but like, why is Toto trademarked? Because the same reason that Aurora is probably trademarked by Disney. I don't get it. Like I have Toto. I mean, if you don't mind, baby, right now I'm going to disturb you. Very good behavior. But like, this is Toto, and she is not trademarked. You can, and that's also the name. It's like trademarking the name Dorothy, right? Like that's a real name, but also I don't know if the name for a dog Toto existed before L. Frank, but I think it did. I think it was a popular dog name, actually, from right. PJ's shaking his head. Yeah. So come on. That's the one thing I had never seen trademarked before. But anyway, I'm digressing. Tori, tell us about the latest with Ray.
I forgot to grab it. So mea culpa. It's upstairs if you guys want to take it for a minute while I go grab it. But what I will say is on the trademark issue, I think because this is licensed Oz, they have to put that on there because there is the official label on the tag. So because Toto as a dog in the book, even if L. Frank Baum had invented that for the book, it's public domain now. So the only trademarked Toto is the Karen Terrier Toto that was featured in the movie, because there's really no physical descriptor of Toto given in the book other than that he's a small black dog with a wee nose. So that could be any number of dogs. So I think the trademarked part of it is a Toto Karen Terrier, if I had to guess.
Oh, interesting. Which is exactly what I have.
Way to go. Over here breaking copyright law just by having your dog.
Warner Brothers is going to get litigious on you, Ryan.
I hope not, because Toto goes with me and we do Wizard of Oz stuff together. But I went and grabbed it since yours was kind of far. But this is what we're talking about for all that, you know. We've talked before about how things that come out and the vultures go in and buy them at the Marshalls, right? Or the home goods stores. And then they sell them for so much. Like this, I think was $30 or $40, $30, right? $29.99. And it's that artwork that Garrett was talking about from the pajamas. I think it's the Hannah Anderson pajamas, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I liked this because it had all of the characters. You know, we have the lion here, the witch. Oh my God, I'm so bad at working backwards. Glinda, Tin Man, Dorothy, Scarecrow, and Toto. I think there are ruby slippers. Yeah, she's got the ruby slippers on too. It says follow the yellow brick road, which I don't know what that line is from. That's not familiar to me. Thank you for laughing. Here's my dad joke for the day. Okay. But yeah, so there's some of the Ray Dunn, and surprisingly, as the new stuff was hitting stores, a lot of the older stuff that came out last year was getting more. Was showing up more and more available. So, you know, because on eBay, it's selling for a fortune.
I would skip eBay. if any collectors out there are just foaming at the mouth to have this, I would wait, because a year from now, the thing that you'll pay this premium for on eBay will come way down in price. And a lot of the older stock is also being pushed over to TJ Maxx. So if you don't find anything at Home Goods, check your local TJ Maxx as well. And also, just a side note, something I learned from the workers at Home Goods, the Ray Dunn vultures that go in and buy up all the stock and resell them, sometimes they'll come in and they won't have the money on hand to buy it, so they'll hide it with other things in the wrong parts of the store. So I actually found my canister with the Easter goods on a totally separate shelf. So if you walk in and it's not where it would typically be, go and look at the holiday decor as well, because sometimes buyers will hide them in there until they can come back and get it.
The other thing I've heard is that if you wait about 5 weeks from the drop date, 6 weeks is how long you have to return it in. So the ones that don't get it sold on eBay bring it back to get their money back. So a lot of it suddenly reappears then, and they also, if something's returned before they get it to the shelf, it's usually up at the register.
Yes,
so
that's
also check the register area to see, oh, did one of the vultures bring it back, and now I can get it. So,
it's very sneaky, Zachary. You're right. Very sneaky.
Which I'm all for spoiling things for vultures, so I feel no qualms about that.
Unbelievable. Wow. Craziness, but there are some good tips for us all. Any other merch we want to talk about? Or PJ, do you want to share something from your collection with everyone?
Oh, goodness. I mean, everything is just a little bit out of reach. I was kind of feeling bad earlier when we were talking about the pins, because like I've got like the Kitschy Witch, like just out of reach, those cute little stylized pins. Yeah, those. So gorgeous.
Yeah,
one of my favorite pieces.
A little out of reach, but I could grab that one.
Oh, I love them. That the art style for all of the Kitschy Witch stuff was so great. Somewhere around here, I moved here within the past year, so I don't have everything, but I got the Great Movie Ride pin from the 90s, relatively, that one with the Oz characters and the Disney characters kind of combining, which is something that we'll probably never see again. So being able to have that, that's probably the favorite pin that I have in my collection.
Well, a company just made a T-shirt of that pin on Instagram. They were pushing it, and oh my gosh,
it was vintage actually.
Yeah, it's gone.
When the Great Movie Ride first opened.
They're all sold out now, and I was mad.
Very cute design, so cute.
So cute.
Yeah, I would have loved to have that, but yeah, that went immediately. Which is like the Ray Dunn stuff in comparison, very cute, but not for me. Like the mass-produced stuff that comes relatively quickly, that's like heavily licensed. At least the Ray Dunn stuff is cuter. I like that it has the hand-drawn art on it, as opposed to like the overly photoshopped like Ghost of Judy Garland nonsense that a lot of Warner Brothers stuff has been pushed out over the past couple of years. But yeah, the only thing that I really, really, really liked was that canister that you showed that had everybody on it. But cool. if I see it and it's cheap, I'll grab it. But otherwise, I'm fine with letting it pass by.
Yeah. I think the retail is $29.99, so you should be able to find it hopefully for that. And they seem to be, producing more and putting more out eventually, if not immediately. But let's segue now into Hit the Bricks. I'm excited that you're joining us today and to hear all about the behind the scenes, the making of, and the rest of it. So let's first begin with a sneak peek at the show.
What is that?
That appears to be a twister made of snow and light.
But is that even possible?
I don't think so, but it's happening anyway, and we're just gonna have to deal with it.
100 years after Dorothy's adventures, two cousins are swept from Kansas to a mysterious land.
Allow me to welcome you to the land of Oz.
Oz?
Full of strange and wondrous people.
Call me Felina. I'm tired of living on the streets.
I will not tolerate any rule breaking from you.
But they can't forget what they left behind.
My mom is the only person I have in the whole world right now. Right before I ended up here, she and I got into a big fight. I can't let that be the last time I spoke to her.
And their new companions have troubles of their own.
Am I to stay up here and rot in a city full of tinker toys that will break and have no one here to fix them?
This is the 4th school I've been to in a year. I keep having to switch so no one catches on that I'm a witch.
Jessica, you are not the only one with family to get back to.
Many trials lay in their path,
Go where? The Wheelers?
What's a wheeler?
What makes it forbidden?
I don't want to find out! Go left!
And the way ahead is not always clear.
Don't you hammerheads get it yet? The wizard is gone. Glinda is gone. There's nobody left in Oz who can help you, and probably no one who wants to.
But hope is not lost.
There's no time to lose. It's very important that you get to Emerald City and ask for Ozma's help.
How do we start for Emerald City?
Why the same way people have done it for hundreds of years? Hit the bricks.
Hit the Bricks is a radio play set in the land of Oz. Subscribe at a podcatcher near you and follow us on twitter.com at hitthebrickspod. Transcripts are available at hitthebricks.com.
Reeling up into it, all you gotta do is hit the bricks.
I know that you can do it.
Hit the bricks.
And I'm going to have Hit the Bricks stuck in my head forever.
Sorry about that.
It's just so dang catchy. So as Ryan said, you're obviously PJ Scott-Blakenship, creator, director, showrunner of Hit the Bricks, and you're also the voice of Wallace, as well as a unnamed character in the prologue. Your sort of bio, you've produced dozens of web series, alternate reality games, shorts, and podcasts, and are currently the vice president of content development at the streaming service Nebula. And you recently executive produced the film version of Abigail Thorne's transgender riff of Shakespeare, The Prince. And you're also a lifelong Oz fan and a fan of everyone on Oz Talk. So brownie points to you on that one. So we've discussed it before, the show before, the podcast before. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It is easily one of the best pieces of Oz material of the last probably 20 years.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I say that sincerely, like, not like, you know. So for those that have not listened, it is like the preview said, it's a sort of present day sequel where two cousins, Wallace and Jessica, end up in Oz, and things are not as we would hope for Oz to be. I don't want to say post-apocalyptic because it's really not post-apocalyptic, and it's not in that it's got elements of darkness without being overly dark. It's like family-friendly level dark. And they're basically, they get to save Oz. And so tell me about let's talk about the inspiration. What got you started on the idea of it? Where did that come from?
Well, I'm a lifelong Oz fan. I couldn't even tell you the origin. I think we've had this almost exact conversation before for one of the Oz Club events. But essentially, I'm a lifelong Oz fan, and around the time that I became a teenager, like a preteen, got really into YA lit, kind of during the zeitgeist of YA lit and fantasy. And there weren't at the time any Oz novels that were contemporary that dealt with mass-produced, highly marketable, but nothing that had came my way. A lot of indie people were doing it, but as a teenager, I had no stories about kids my age in Oz. And so I think the earliest record I have of writing Hit the Brick stories was 2004. I was a kid at the time, and it just kind of became this sort of episodic thing to me, where I would write little vignettes and stories, kind of like how Baum did with the first Oz book, where they were originally a series of stories he was telling his sons, and then he edited them together in an actual story. And then, I got through my 20s, and I decided, as I was producing stuff, I actually want to make this. And it turned into an audio drama because a lot of my peers at the time were getting into podcasting and audio fiction. And from there, it is what it is now. It's kind of a very versatile story, so I wouldn't be surprised if in the future it took on other forms, whether we actually do get around to writing a book or adapting it for something else. But for right now, we're pretty happy in the audio fiction medium.
When you sat down to go about it, obviously, there's a lot that's sort of internal inspiration and things that come to you. Did you specifically stick to only wanting to go with Baum? I notice, at least in the first season, there's not a ton of Thompson. I know Thompson's only kind of sort of starting to become public domain, so I know that probably colored a little. But did you primarily just want to stick to Baum in general?
when I first started making the story, I hadn't read any Thompson. And so like, you know, I've got the Books of Wonder editions behind me. The original 14 by Baum are what kind of are encoded into my DNA. And like, I know them, as opposed to like, I would have to do a lot more research on his successors. Personally, now that I'm a little older and that I've read through some of them, you know, Thompson has a space and she's celebrated and she's loved, but she's not my version of Oz. Like, I don't feel like her influence in Hit the Bricks. I don't feel like the world that we're going back to is the one that she touched so much as it's very much Baum's. And so, you know, there will probably be loving nods to multiple successors throughout the show. There are like little bits and pieces of it. There's some art, I think, of one of the character Rias has a gas mask that looks like an elephant, and it has like little Kabumbo is the name of the brand of the gas mask and stuff like that. But in terms of pulling more characters and plot from that right now, probably not. Like, the plot is pretty tightly structured. So there aren't any plans, but you never know. So
yeah, and you do a really marvelous job of incorporating a lot of elements of Baum that I hesitate to say Easter eggs, because in some ways, some things are Easter eggs. Like the one when I first started listening to it, where I was already on the boat to being sold, but then what sold me was when you gave Dorothy street address in Kansas, like her farm, 433 Prospect Place. And I was like, oh, okay, now this is on. That's one of the things I love is you've got some that I would consider like a traditional Easter egg like that, but like you bring in all sorts of really terrific elements from the Baum books, like the dome over Glinda's palace, coming straight from Glinda of Oz and things like that. Were there any things that you specifically said, oh yes, I have to include this, or if I can, I'll include it later, but was there anything that just, no, you knew immediately, this is something I want to make the nod to clearly?
Yeah, the most primary one is the character of Jessica. Eagle-eyed Oz fans, if you're paying attention, like, you know that she's from San Francisco. Her name is Jessica Hudson. She is probably the direct descendant of Dorothy's cousin Zeb. But in terms of her actual name, she's named after Jessica Grove, who played Dorothy in the 1997 Madison Square Garden production with Roseanne, and then it went on tour, backed by Paper Mill Playhouse. I saw that show in New York the first time I'd ever seen anything at 6 years old. And she's from Hilliard, which is a small town in Columbus, like a suburb of Columbus, near where I am now. And so being 6 and making that travel and seeing a Broadway-esque show for the first time and looking at the program and seeing like, this girl is a little older than I am, but she's from where I'm from. Like, somewhat, like, these are real people and you can leave where you're at and go and do something with your life. I've never talked just to Jessica Grove, but that had such a huge mark on like my trajectory of life that naming the main character Jessie was really important to me. And like you said, with the Wiz and the address, and like Aunt Jane's Nieces being Jessie's favorite band, and little things like that. The childhood bully being Trixie from the original stage play and stuff, like anything that I could get to let people know, like, I see your love of Oz. I see like the version that you grew up with, or the versions that you love. I think that even if you don't love certain adaptations, or you didn't grow up with certain books or movies or whatever, there's a Oz for everyone. And so I want you to know, like, I'm building this space for you. Like, come play with us. There's going to be something here that you love.
And the Aunt Jane's Nieces, that was another thing that I was just that I thought was so brilliant. And it's in that one shot that's the main poster kind of for the series, where they're in the yellow poppies, and Jessie's clearly wearing the Aunt Jane's Nieces shirt, and the J is the Dinslow seahorse. That's just perfection. And one of the other things that I really love about the show is how diverse it is. And I'm hoping you could talk a little bit about the decision making there, and the development of that, because I think that's something that frequently gets overlooked in modern adaptations.
Yeah, for me, like, to quote Diana Ross in The Wiz, like, there's no decision to make. It's just one of those things where, especially in the audio drama world, that's like an indie untouched market from Hollywood for the most part, where like the most successful people are doing their own thing and playing by their own rules. I'm queer, I'm agender. Everybody that touches the show is trans or person of color or disabled or neurodivergent or part of the LGBT umbrella. And it's not performative. It's not like a statement of wokeness. We're not trying to be like, look how diverse we are for the sake of it. It's because it's real. Our Oz exists in sincerity. And Baum's Oz books feature characters from all types of background with all types of different identities in ways that even his contemporaries didn't get to, and people now are still starting to understand, like, what is it? What is gender? What are, what does it mean to be of a certain background? It's all important to us because it's real and it's who we are. And I think that if we start gatekeeping Oz away from people, it stops being what it is. As Polychrome says to Dorothy, like, you've got very queer friends, and Dorothy's like, well, queerness doesn't matter as long as they're my friends. And building on top of that, I think staying with that, it would be a slap in the face to my life and my experiences, and certainly everyone that has been touched by Oz, but also touches the show. And so it's not really even something that I want to think about in terms of, like, I don't know, feeling beholden to a certain ideology as much as it is being sincere and giving everyone the space to tell their stories.
Well, and one of the things you've also done that I think is truly fantastic is on the website, you have content warnings per episode in case there is anything that, someone needs to look for. Not there's anything like overtly triggering, but there are some dark and intense moments. But you also offer transcripts so that if you're, deaf or hearing impaired, you have access to the world still. It's not something that's completely closed away from.
And it's all very important. I mean, personally, even like, I'm not hard of hearing or deaf, but we're working in a strictly audio medium. So it's so important. And also, like, in watching television, I watch it with the subtitles on. I know that some people hate that, but like, I don't want to miss anything. And oftentimes I will go back or read a script or read a transcript or whatever of something, because I don't want to miss anything.
Mm-hmm.
And Hit the Bricks is a show that has a lot hidden and a lot of Easter eggs, like what you were saying. So, and it's a scripted show. I'm going to get on a bit of a rant here, but it blows my mind when scripted shows don't have transcripts. It's like, at the very least, post your scripts, like, it baffles me. And, we've done a little bit more work to make sure that there are more like audio cues and stuff than just a script. But I don't it's the easiest thing in the world to just post your transcripts and let people know, like, what you're saying. And yeah, so.
All right. Do we want to, Ryan, Tori, do you have questions you want to ask?
I do. And this is one of the things that struck me as really fantastic that you've been able to do because of the medium that you're using is you've kind of gone back to Baum's texts. And one of the things that I know bothers a lot of people who genuinely love Baum, me included, is the inconsistencies in the lore and the fact that he pays absolutely no attention to continuity. But you subtly make sense of the continuity errors and kind of explain, my favorite, of course, being the Mombi, the Wizard, and Ozma situation, how you used your medium and your platform to explain that. So could you go into, was that part of your mission? Was part of your mission going back in and fixing Baum's errors?
First of all, you've won my heart all over again by just noticing that. I think that modern sensibility demands it. When Baum was creating his series, he's just telling stories to kids. The internet's not a thing. You don't have people like going like, my mind is the internet. I know every continuity mistake on television. People aren't doing that in the early 1900s. And so, of course, like, I can't really flack Baum, but now we live in an age of, like, if a movie makes one blooper, that's someone's content count. Like, that's their whole library on their YouTube channel for the next month, is like the sins of Marvel. They didn't know that, like, I don't know, the suit is a different color in 2 shots or whatever. But for me, like, we're retreading what happens in a lot of that early lore. And I just know that we don't exist in a storytelling space where that will fly. So yeah, trying to make sense of some of Baum's and like inconsistencies for the sake of making the story better, but also like those holes create new storytelling opportunities. It allows me the ability to answer questions with my own answers that tie into the plot of the current story. So it's almost like a gift from Mr. Baum that he left certain doors open, because now I can be like, okay, but did you know that my character's dad is the whole reason why this thing happened or whatever? So it's a lot of fun that way for me too.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, I know you voice the voice of Wallace, and I feel like for writers, almost all of a writer's writing is somewhat autobiographical. So what do you feel you have the most in common with Wallace?
Wallace, it's funny because when you look at Wallace and Jesse, Jesse is technically the main character, but she's not a Dorothy. She goes into the world as a modern teenager and is like, magic is cool, but have you considered the internet? Like I desperately would like to get back to a point where I have like hot meals and stuff. But for Wallace, like Wallace is the Dorothy of the two. And for me, like Wallace is the quiet part said out loud in terms of, well, if I went to Oz as a kid who loved it, like what would it be like for me? And having those two exist in opposition of each other, I think creates an interesting dynamic. His sincerity in how much he loves the people around him, how protective he is over his family, and his devotion to his mother, I think are probably the things that I have the most in common with Wallace. But in terms of the overall cast, I actually think I'm more of a Lurleen than the other main four, where she puts up like quite a like aggressive front, and she's very afraid of showing who she is, both for personal reasons, but also for like legal reasons. Magic is outlawed in Oz from the get-go with the Oz books, and that creates a much harder environment for her to be in when the peacekeepers are away, and those old biases that people are afraid of witches, and now they have legal reason to be able to discriminate. That kind of like living inauthentically for so long can turn you into kind of a sour person, which is what has happened with Lurleen. And that I can relate to, I think, a little bit more than just Wallace, considering just, constantly being like, oh goodness, look at that over there. Look at all these, like, maybe that would happen for 5 minutes, but for the most part, I would just be like, we have to get everything under control now.
It's Ryan's turn.
I love it. Thank you. Very, very subtle transition. Thank you, Tori and Garrett. PJ, I just want to really kind of quickly go through some of the technical aspects, because what really impresses me is the production value and quality. Obviously, you have people working on this show who know what they're doing. Well, let's go through the cast a little bit. You've got you, and who are your friends here?
So Michelle Agresti plays Jesse. I play Wallace. Kaylee Hamilton Morera is the voice of Lurleen, and Jordan Higgs is the voice of Jacoby. They all have backgrounds in audio. Michelle and Jordan are both in like pretty popular indie audio drama works, and I had heard them in other shows, and they didn't know me from Adam, and I didn't really know them either. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't even know what they looked like, but I heard their voices and I was like, oh, especially with Michelle, hearing her in another show, she's playing like a runaway in one of the shows that I had heard her in. Totally different character from what Jessie is, but hearing her tone, like I knew immediately that it had to be her. And Kaylee is actually a DJ. She was one of the youngest DJs over at WFMU and out of Brooklyn. We were kids when we met, and I think she's been doing that since she was like 12 years old. And this is her first audio drama role, but she's nailing it. And she's got one of the most beautiful singing voices in the world that like nobody gets to hear because she's just a DJ. And those three are my main three with me. And I wouldn't have been able to really have such a dynamic and diverse show without them.
Right. And you do have, of course, a lot of extra cast here. And I love that you talked about your focus on inclusivity in casting. It's wonderful. And then as we move on to the music, you also, you have a lot of different sound aspects. I think the sound design, the audio effects are very, very well done. And of course, there's original music. So tell us about that a little bit.
Well, huge shout out to my executive producer, kind of my co-leader here, Esther Ellis. She does the sound design. She has a horror background, actually. And if you're a horror buff, you know that like you can't have an effective horror anything without really good sound design. And I think Walter Murch knew that too, which I think is why the soundscape in Return to Oz is just in terms of the music too, I think that you really can't have Oz without music, even in things that aren't musicals. Like you're tracking the score, and not for nothing. When The Wizard of Oz first came out, Baum immediately made it into a Broadway musical. So I knew that this would have to be a musical, just because I think it's enwired in Oz's DNA. Even in the books, characters randomly burst out into song. All three of these musicians that you just saw on the screen, I've known them all for a long time. They're all queer. Catherine does the majority of the music and lyrics of the musical numbers themselves, and Andrew does a lot of the other accompanying music. And they're very special to me because I've known them for a long time, but also they're Appalachian. And for me, like, I have an Appalachian background. I'm from Southern Ohio. Having folksy music, like, there's nothing in Oz that dictates that. There's nothing in Baum's work that says like it has to be like this. But it is a way for me to put some of my own culture into the heart of the show without getting like overly preachy with it. So that was a huge thing for me. And Jeff Ball was great. He's from Alaska, but he's done 1,000 video games and TV shows. He's best known for composing most of Steven Universe Future and Steven Universe the movie, and he's been working on that. He had worked on that for a long time anyway, and he does the main theme song that you hear. And honestly, without the music and without the sound design, the show would be 1,000 times less impactful.
And another thing that you're doing, and I don't know how common this is for audio dramas and shows, but I think it's a really fantastic element to see, is your visual aspect. So there are social channels to follow you on, and you fully embodied in terms of the artwork design.
Yeah, Roxanne Mueller and Aaron Speckley, they both worked with us very early on in establishing a lot of the look and a lot of the pieces. But when we kind of did a rebranding of the show and re-edited the episodes in the remastered version, we decided to go in a new direction with art too, to kind of celebrate that. And Chandler Candela has been with us since then, and he is just constantly pumping out new work. There's stuff that's coming that no one has seen yet that I'm really excited about. And I'm, if you listen to the show, you're probably going to guess that I love Easter eggs. So in every aspect of the show's art, even back when Roxanne was doing it, there are little Easter eggs that nod not just to the show, but to Oz overall, and its various adaptations.
It's fantastic. Oh, it's so cool. Well, everyone can head over to hitthebricks.com to find out how to listen. I think you can listen right there on the website as well. Is that correct?
You can stream directly from the website. You can listen to episodes early and ad-free on Nebula. You can plug the RSS feed into anything. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. I almost said iTunes, but that's not a thing anymore. Yes. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, literally anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can find it.
It's really fantastic. Congrats on such a passion project and moving it forward. We're really enjoying it. So PJ Scott-Blakenship, thank you for joining us today. It's been really, really great having you on Oz Talk. And we're so glad for those of you who watched us live. Thank you so much. Please share this Oz Talk episode on your Facebook pages and like us on YouTube. Subscribe to all of our channels and the rest of it. And again, we wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for the club that brought us all together, which is the International Wizard of Oz Club. And I'm going to send it over to Garrett today to tell everybody why they should join the Oz Club and how to do it.
Okay, so 100% you should join the club if you're a fan of Oz, if you're a fan of us. It's a great place to come and hang out. Membership is fairly quick and easy to attain. It starts at if you're over 18, it starts at $30 a year. You get 3 issues of the Baum Bugle. The next one has an article from me in it. So if you like me, that could be an incentive. You also get discounts in the shop, access to the online community, free admission to virtual events. And then you can go up from there. There's also a youth membership, which is $15 for the same basic info that you would get on the basic level. But if you're under 18, it's only $15. So that's, the price of 3 trips to Starbucks. So definitely well worth it if you have an Oz fan in your life that might still want to join that hasn't. Highly recommend it. We're all really fun people to come chat with. So, yeah.
Ozclub.org. Thanks so much, everybody.